Hi, I'm Annie Meehan, and this is H3 TV. Thanks so much for tuning in. It has been a few weeks. I had the distinct pleasure of speaking in Dublin, Ireland at a global conference where we talked about how to be the exception. And I had the privilege of meeting up hundreds of people from all over the world and encouraging them to be the exception. And then after that, I spent a week in northern Minnesota speaking and traveling to 3 different organizations, which I had agreed to speak for in 2019. Life is finally getting back to a little bit of normal. So I bring you this H3 TV every week to offer you hope, health, and happiness. Today I'm wearing my bright green because it's the color of health and wealth. And I love to remind you, dress in color, live in color. Do it first for yourself, but then do it because when you choose to be hopeful, healthy, and happy, it'll impact someone else's life. I like to interview a guest every day for them to share their ideas on how they personally and professionally live an H3 life and bring that H3 culture to their workplace. Today, I have the pleasure of having Barbara Carr join us. Hi, Barbara. Welcome to the TV show, H3 TV. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Annie. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Barbara, can you tell us a little bit about who you are? What do you do? Where are you from?
Absolutely. Well, I am a resident of Florida, but I am originally from the state of Minnesota, and we have that in common, Annie. And I've been down here for the last 2 years. I guess it's just been 2 years.
Okay.
But I've taken 2 roles, one as the Business and Economic Development Administrator for the city of Fort Myers, and recently took a position with the city of Newport Richey as the Director of Economic Development.
Awesome. So what are some of your keys to staying hopeful, healthy, and happy? What do you do, Barbara, to take care of yourself personally?
For me, I like to plan ahead. I'm a person who looks to what could be or what I'm maybe not yet. That seems to be something that I think to myself a lot. I've done that with painting, with other things that I take on as a project. I like to think I may not know all the answers right now, but I am hopeful and I'm optimistic that I can find the answers, and that helps to move me forward in a way that really gives me hope for the future.
I love that. So you're curious, which is one of my, I think is such a strength in people. You're curious and you're willing to discover, to go on a little treasure hunt of, you know what, I might not have it all figured out, but I'm going to stay open and curious, and I'm going to discover as I go. So I love that. Plus you sound like a researcher, which always we can discover new and interesting things. So when we think about being hopeful and happy and healthy, do you think that's something that just happens by chance or by circumstance, or is it a choice?
For myself, I believe it is a choice. I think that's always an opportunity. I have expectations about time with my family, giving back to my community. And because I care about those as part of who I am, it also helps me talk to other people about their hopes and dreams and think about what they want for their future. And really, I feel like I am a problem solver, but at the same time, I like to see other people solve their problems or discuss what their path is. I'm always interested, and I feel like another word that is very common for me is maybe. I like to think about the potential of somebody's ideas and hope that there's a way that we can make those dreams a reality for people. And that's probably what I enjoy the most about my new role.
I like maybe. I like to say the word yet, not yet. People will say, I don't do that. And I'll say, well, not yet, but we can change that mindset, or we can move forward, or we can make a new habit. But I also love that what you added in with choice, which I have not had someone else say, and at least in the way that you did, is you added in caring, curiosity, and compassion, not only for yourself about the choices you make to stay hopeful, to stay healthy, to stay happy, but to have that caring, compassionate heart toward other people. And you can really feel that, Barbara. And I think when we are in a public servant role, which you are, caring about your community, I always think it's such a privilege to be the voice for another person. And it's a privilege and it's a responsibility, right? But when we show up with caring and compassion to understand rather than to judge the people around us and have their best interest in heart, like you said, for you, it's a choice, but for many people, they struggle with being hopeful or healthy or happy. So you have that compassionate heart for other people. And I appreciate that about you. And I know it's such a gift to your community that you're in, because sometimes, yeah.
I just think of the biggest thing that most people need is encouragement and a path. They need a path towards what it is that is possible.
Yeah.
And I feel like I discovered that for myself, that there was opportunities for me to go back to school, learn something that I didn't really have a lot of background in, but I felt like my experiences in the past gave me some skills that would be beneficial, which is why I went and got my master's in nonprofit management. But then soon discovered I could really have an impact if I got my master's in public administration to work my business experience and other information that I've learned over time to really give another view or another focus on how cities can operate and function for the betterment of the public themselves. And I like to think that people can reach out to me and we can have a conversation. And I've had experience giving bad news, I've had experience giving good news, but I never want that news to take away their hope for their future. And so that is always at the forefront of what I'm thinking about when I'm talking to someone, is that they still feel like they have the potential to do something in addition to what I may or not be able to do for them. And I think it's just, it's an experience of letting people know that what they're trying to do, I want them to be able to do. And I think that's always in my mind for why I want to do this job. And I think a lot of that came from working with people at their worst moments, when they had tragedies in their lives, and being able to be somebody who could support them through the process, but also explain the process. In times now, everything is so hopeful and joyful and really optimistic. And it really makes this job a perfect fit. That's how I feel. I feel like it's a perfect fit to work with the people I get to work with. I feel honored.
I love that, Barbara. And hopefully you'll feel that way in a year and 5 years from now. So James is weighing in saying, Leonardo DiCaprio says the word is curisto. So you are curisto about other people. So you're curious and you have compassion inside of that. And he's saying, so important in the H3 lives. Thanks, James, for listening and commenting. Barbara, you said something that I think is really important. I think people forget about. In fact, I was talking to a young person the other day and they said, people that aren't making enough money need to go to college and need to do this and and you use the word opportunity. And I think sometimes we forget. I was explaining to this young person who had a rather blessed life that not everybody gets the same opportunities. And growing up in, subsidized housing and in poverty, it wasn't always equal. I didn't have that opportunity to go to college or to live a certain way. And so I love that you have this compassionate heart for understanding some people get different opportunities, but your job, your desire in your role is to make sure everyone in the community is taken care for in some way. I'm not saying you're responsible for everyone, but to make sure there's fair housing and that there's fair and safe places to live and to work and to grow. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that you recognize it's an opportunity, and I appreciate that you care about other people's stories. Even if we haven't walked through their story, that we have the ability to have compassion and support and encouragement, as you said, for people on their journey. Did you have a comment?
Well, I wanted to just point out that it can be very easy to sit in the sadness that you have or feel like your options are limited. But that's just a moment in your life where I feel like you have to just figure out what is going to be the step I take right now. What is the one thing that I could do today that might make a difference, and then build on that. I really think there's something to be said for someone who's willing to walk their path, but see a future. Look for where there's an opportunity for them to just grow. I really feel like that's been the biggest lesson for me. Is it could have been very easy for me to enjoy the life that I had and sit back, and I had a very good job, and decided to switch it up. And I don't think I think it's really common for people who are younger than me, less common for people of my age to make those kind of decisions. But I really felt like if I was going to have an impact on my community, I wanted it to be bigger than what I was doing at the time, because I was a good volunteer, but I wanted it to be something where people could have a difference in their life that would better it. And in that, I think it's been what is so enjoyable about the work that I do.
Well, and you're taking a risk.
It was a risk.
It's a huge risk. And
Yeah.
I ask people all the time, it's more comfortable to stay in a mundane place, in an unsatisfied place, because it's what we know. But
Right.
those of us that step out to what we know we can do more of, that take that risk, that's where not only are we more satisfied, but we can make a bigger impact. So I think it's brave, and I think you're right. I think sometimes when you're young, it's like, oh, I'll change jobs every 6 months. And as we get more comfortable and get more set in our ways and set in our spending and set in our comfort zone, it's hard to say, hey, I'm going to pick up everything and move and try a new chapter and try a new job and try a new neighborhood and make new friends. I mean, even moving from Minnesota to Florida has been such a big change, and there's been beautiful stuff about it and challenging stuff and interesting stuff, but staying curious is great. So I want to talk to you about, what do you think the difference is, Barbara, between hopeful and optimistic? What's kind of the difference in that?
Yeah, I feel like times when I've been hopeful, I felt less out of control of what I could do. And when I was optimistic, I was setting a path of activity. And I think part of it is that I am very strategic in the way I look at things, and I don't leave much to chance.
Okay.
I'm very aware of what's expected, and I try to make sure that I've met those expectations. So anyone who's out there who's looking for work, I think it's really important to look at job descriptions and figure out, can I gain those skills as a volunteer? Can I gain those skills in the job that I'm in? What is it that I'm ultimately hoping to do at the end of this? And take every opportunity that you have to learn something from the role that you're in. Good or bad, I think that there's the risk that you take to try things, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But to be the kind of person who can brush that off and keep going, I think is a real challenge for some people. And I just think in this world right now, regardless of what people say, that that people choose where they can work. You have to choose it in a way that best fits the person that you are and the things that you hope to do in the future, and take every opportunity you have to learn something from, whether it be a good experience or bad experience, and bring it to the next job and try to avoid it in the next role, or make it better in the way that you approach the things that you do. I think we all are learning, and it's just it's for your own mental health to continue to try to make it so whatever you're thinking in your head, you've pushed that out into the world and figured out whether it's true or not, and respect the emotions that you're feeling at the time, but allow yourself to kind of get back into that optimistic and future thinking. That's
I think
otherwise you can spend a lot of time wallowing in what you wish it could have been, and just know that you can still make it that in the future.
yeah.
How do you feel about that, Annie?
I love it. James is commenting again too, and he's saying he's not hopeful. He thinks it's important to be hope-filled, and I like that a lot. What I like of what you said, Barbara, is interesting. Is, to me, you said a hope, and you kind of described it more as an emotion, but then you talked about optimism as kind of an action, and I like that. You like, when I'm feeling hopeful, I'm kind of thinking about the future and it's going to work out, and I'm thinking through it or feeling through it. But when you're thinking about optimism, it's like, what's the first next best step? And I do think that I loved, owning gyms. I had the privilege of hiring great people, but occasionally needing to let people go. And I always really appreciated people that cared enough to come back and say, can you tell me why you're letting me go? Because I would always go out of my way to say, this one or two thing, you were doing great. Bring that with you. But these two things, I can't have you being late or, missing a point, whatever it was. You got to move on to that. So coming back to say, how can I be better, and taking with what worked and learning from what didn't. And it's hard for me to understand when people don't want to work. I've worked since I was 7. I love work. And I feel like people are like, well, a paycheck. And I'm like, yeah, paycheck's good, but it's not for a paycheck. It is for a purpose. It is to get out of bed. It is to know you're making a difference in the world or in one person's life. Like I want to always help people look for jobs and look for the right job and leave the jobs that don't fit them. Sometimes HR directors are like, don't motivate people so much, Annie, that they all want to quit. And I'm like, I agree. But if they don't like it here, let them go. They're not serving you. You're not serving them. They're not bringing their best. You're not giving your best. So it is about finding that right fit. So I love, Barbara, that you're saying, look back over your career. What skills do you have if you're not qualified yet? What could you learn? How could you volunteer, be an intern, get involved, even if it's one day a week, if there's an area you want to work. So I really like that. I think it's so important. And what I think about is happiness. Like some people are like, it's so easy for you, Annie. Your life's so great. You're so happy all the time. I'm like, I have struggles just like everybody, but I choose happiness every day. But for you, when you look at happiness, what's the difference between happiness and joy, and personally and professionally? And what do you do to bring that into your workplace?
I've always found it interesting that I've always maintained friendships for the long term. I mean, my oldest friend is from going to daycare at the age of 3 years old.
Oh,
But there are people that I've always worked with, that I've always maintained friendships with. I think I just value people to the point where I'm fiercely loyal, is what I would call it. And that's what gives me joy and happiness, is to be able to continue those relationships, even if we no longer serve a purpose for each other in our workplace. We still can be a support for one another, and making sure that when you leave one place, that you still have those friendships and people that you care about. I think that that's important.
that's beautiful. So you find a lot of value in relationships, and
I
you
do.
value those. You find value in the relationships, in having them, and you value people, which
Right.
is huge. All right. So what is it? Teach them to grow and watch them go. It is a dualistic truth. That's James. James is weighing in today. He is listening to us. Thanks for listening, James, and for commenting. We always appreciate knowing who's listening out there. What are some of the things, Barbara, that slip into your life and add stress or steal some of that hope or happiness? What are some of those things for you?
Um, I want to step back just on something you had said about helping people to grow. One of the things that I've always been surprised at is when I take a job, I usually meet a person that I wonder why they didn't apply for that job. And so it feels like a person where I want to help encourage them in their future thinking about themselves.
Mm.
And I really feel that that has happened more than once, where I've met somebody who I thought, you would have been perfect for this job, and somehow or another you didn't apply for it. And I would just encourage people who are in a role to expand their thoughts about what the time frame is for them to obtain a position, and to really accept the value of what they bring to the table, and be able to recognize how you can take that information about yourself and use it to your next position. And I don't think anybody in HR is really looking to stop the succession of someone's talent and experiences and opportunities. In fact, I'd like to think it's like when I worked at the bank. I started out as a proof operator, and I slowly transitioned up. I was 19 years old at the time, and I worked there for 6 years. They helped me through college. And when I took my role to work for the next company for 28 years, they were encouraging for me to take that next step. And I'd like to think that that's how we look at everybody who works with us, is that we want to know what are their goals and how can we help them get to that next level. So, I really hope that that's something that I've left behind with other people that I've worked with, that they are encouraged to take that next step to that next role, and know that there's value in what they bring to the table.
I love that. So important. You're making me think back to when I was 20 and I worked for Piper Jaffray as a receptionist. And I remember the manager of accounting told me there was going to be an opening, and I knew I wasn't qualified for it, but he's like, you should just apply. And there was like 30 people, but ultimately I ended up getting the job by counting backwards from 93 by sevens in the middle of an interview. But just to have that encouragement, to be that for somebody else, but also to receive that and to look for people. And so if you think somebody, even if they're not fully there, or if they are, but if they don't have the confidence or they don't have all the experience, to look around you for who you could encourage to at least put themselves out there. I always tell people, just interview. I was telling one of my sisters, just interview, even if you don't want the job. You'll learn skills, you'll gain confidence. So when the right job comes, you'll be ready. And I think that's such a skill, interviewing and being curious about different jobs and what gifts you could bring or what you're not qualified for, whatever the case may be. So that's really important, Barbara. I love that's so important. And I'm glad you're one of those people, and I can feel that about you. And there's a lot of people that don't have the confidence or belief in themselves to even put themselves out there, right? So So is there anything that steals your joy and happiness, or are you always happy, Barbara?
I've been married for 25 years, so I like to think even if it's getting stolen in one place, I've got this support system behind me that kind of refuels me, that has been encouraging and allowed me to be the person that I wanted to be. And so I don't think they get to steal it for very long. I think I may have a moment where I might feel like disappointed in the interaction, but ultimately I still try to bring that back around to have it be something that ends on a good note. I really think not all conversations are easy, but I think at the very end, you still remember people are human, people make mistakes. We all want the best for each other, and we just have to get back to thinking about people in those terms, that we want the best for them.
Yeah. And you kind of answered the next question without me even asking. And part of it is that life happens, right? Stress happens. And so our joy can get stolen, even if we look happy or our kids struggle or something at our work or whatever the case may be. But it is having that great support system. So having your husband be an ally, be a soft place to land on a hard day. And when life gets overwhelming, having great encouragement and support around you. And you talked about loyalty and relationships being so important to you. And so I think that all adds in. What are some things you are hopeful about? You're in a new position in the world. What are some things you're hopeful about personally? What are you looking forward to? Sometimes people get so focused on what isn't working. So I always like to highlight what are some good things that you see coming up in your future?
I think for me, I'm going to have some opportunities to create more spaces within the city of Newport Richey that are going to be friendly to pedestrians and walkways, and work with the local businesses and make sure that they're having success in their businesses, seeing the events that are coming in. It's a smaller community, so it's different than where I was before, and I like the opportunities to see what you can do in a small community, see what you can do in a larger community, and ultimately just build a community around you, people who have an interest in making this a place that everybody feels comfortable in, and that there's diversity in our thoughts and diversity in the way that we treat one another, that we're good to one another, and that we're just, on the streets. That's the beautiful thing about Florida is people are outside, they're doing things, they're eating outside. You get to enjoy each other's company. And that's what's going to, I think, sustain me. I'm near water. I love being by water. I'm a morning person. So, and I also like to watch the sunsets. That's where I think happiness is going to fulfill me, is that I have nature, I have people, and I have a family that loves me. So I'm very blessed.
You are very blessed. You are. And you're right. I mean, it's a huge draw for me in Florida. People are like, why'd you move? I'm like, sunshine and beach, period, basically. There's a whole bunch more reasons, but those are like my main. And I said, when you're in Minnesota, as you and I know, for me personally, it could be easy to lock down about mid-October to mid-May. And there was still snow coming mid-October and mid-May some years. And when you're here, every morning you get up, I go walk the beach with the dogs, then I come back, then I go walk the beach by myself, then I go for a bike ride to the post office, then we go for a swim, or we play pickleball or bags, or there's just stuff to do constantly, play bocce ball, play pickleball, play tennis. There's people are outside and they're eating outside and they're living outside and they're sitting outside in the sunset. And I love that energy, right? Like that makes you hopeful. I always think if I'm stressed or having a bad day, you go walk the beach, it regrounds you. You're like, look at the ocean. It is so much more powerful than any bad thing that I could be walking through or going through, and just calm down, take a deep breath. For me, say the serenity prayer and then get back to work. So thank you. Those are good. You have a lot to be hopeful for, right? And to be able to make an influence in that community, make things safe. We want pedestrians to be safe. There are people out walking all the time on the streets, and Greg and I talk about that a lot. Like you have to be alert if we ever drive, which we rarely do, but just of people around you and crossing the street. So when we think about health, owning gyms for 12 years, I really realized when I use the word health, most people think of physical, but for me, I think about emotional, mental, environmental, like you're talking about environmental health, career health, relationship health, financial health. What area of health do you like to focus on either personally or with your team? What sort of a healthy environment? What are some things that means to you, or what do you care about creating?
I want people to, be able to put away their work when they go home. I like for people to have a division between what they do for a living and how they live their lives. But I also feel that when you're at work, making relationships with the other people in breaking down silos, looking at yourselves as part of a team, that's so encouraging. And I'm enjoying myself so much because I just came from a director's meeting. And then right afterwards, we're talking about, okay, how can we put this together? And what are we going to do? And we're sharing resources with one another. And that's healthy. That's a culture that is set up as a team of people who, both on the political side and the public side of the staff, we have excellent leadership where our leader wants us to know that she supports our decisions, and that she wants us to have the opportunities to learn more about other ways that we can benefit the city, and to really she encourages us to think outside of just what's happening here, but what's happening in other areas, and bring that back and make sure it's a good fit for our community as well.
Thank
And
you.
that for me is a healthy culture.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a healthy culture. You're setting up a connected culture, which I love that. Inclusive. Everybody's opinion matters. We might not do what everyone says, but we're going to listen to everyone. We're all part of the team. We all add value. But you're also setting up healthy boundaries. And so many people are afraid of boundaries. And I'm like, boundaries are good to say, okay, the workday is done. It's okay to be present with your family. It's okay to take some downtime and be alone. It's okay to shut everything off and not respond to every email that comes in after hours. So I think you're creating a healthy culture in the place of inclusive and value, but you're also creating healthy boundaries to say it's okay to be done with your day and go on with your life. So those are excellent for creating a healthy, hopeful, and happy because people that have boundaries are going to be happier, right? People that feel valued are going to be happier. They're going to be healthier. They're going to look forward to coming to work. You're saying your direct leader values you, and you feel that value, and you want to make sure that you give that to everyone on your team. So what a beautiful and great place to work. You guys are going to have a bunch of applicants after this, even if you don't have openings, just because such a great place to work, right? Is there anything that you kind of think in your head, whether you identify as a coach or not, you're an influencer, you're a leader, how do you like to coach or help encourage other people, either that work directly for you or that you get to serve in the community? What are some ways that you really like to encourage them?
I guess I like to hear what they're thinking out loud, because so often my role is a bridge between what they want to do and what someone else wants to do, and so I'm able to take in that information and I tuck it away, but I bring it back out when I think it's the right time and there's the right place for it. In that, I've only been here a short amount of time, but I've already connected some people to other people. Not everything happens through me, but you know this, Annie, because as soon as I had an opportunity, I introduced you to my dear friend Katrina. I really feel like there's a synergy when people can get to know one another, and you can encourage the things that they care about. Not everybody has the same things that they are passionate about, but there are other people who are, and to show them what's available to them, give them some resources that could assist them. Just the idea that you were listening to what they said, and then you brought that forth in another way that could benefit them. That, I think, is what I hope that I always am trying to do. It's in my DNA. I just know, when I say it out loud, I can hear my mother. It just really makes me laugh. But that's how the neighborhood I grew up in, we had over 40 kids in our neighborhood, and my mom shared a paper with 3 other ladies in the neighborhood, and that was how they checked up on each other. That's what this is about. It's about we are supportive of one another, and we want each of us to succeed, and that's what's going to benefit everybody. I'm not a person who you would reach out to if you're looking to create adversaries. I'm not the person you are going to complain about the person next to you. I am going to try to figure out what can we do to fix it, but I'm more likely to be the person who wants you to figure out how can you best be a good neighbor to one another.
So great. I love, so you listen to people, you value their stories, and then you go through your Rolodex and say, who can I connect you with to help you, right? And that's
Right.
what you did for me. I'm like, I'm looking to meet people in Florida, not Minnesota. I'm in Florida, looking to meet people in Florida. I'm looking to speak. Who do you know? And you're like, hey, let me connect you. Let's all go have lunch together. And not only like, let me just connect you on LinkedIn, like let's gather around a meal. I thought that was so beautiful, Barbara. I think who does that? We need more of that in the world, right? But you're saying I'm a bridge builder, I'm a listener, and then I'm a connector. I can't solve all the problems. I don't have all the answers or all the ability or influence to do it, but I can connect you. I care enough to think about who can I connect you with. And I love that. I love that you're saying, hey, I'm a bridge builder. I might not be, you can vent to me sometimes, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to how can we make things better, not just complain about what doesn't work. Very, very good. I love that stuff. What's one confusing thing about work culture? Like, is there anything about health or work culture that you feel like people misunderstand this and therefore they don't put themselves out there?
I think in general, most people want to do their very best. And in their mind, their very best is to do the work alone, so that they can show others that they have value. Um, but in reality, finding ways to allow other people to be part of that process, you're actually giving them value. Um, and so when people want to silo up or to create barriers between what they do and what you do, it's just it has an impact on the way that each person feels about who they are as a person and how they contribute. So finding ways to make others feel like they have the opportunity to contribute, even if it's in a small way, or that you've listened and then you've reacted in a way that makes them feel like you valued their opinion or what they've said. The more you can do that, the more everybody has a sense of purpose. And I like it when people come to me and they have a thought about what I could do, because I feel like I don't have all the answers. So the more they share with me, the better I can do my job. And I feel like it goes the same for what I could share with them. I never really look at anything as top down. I look at it as side to side next to each other.
I love that. I always say nobody's my competition in the speaking world. Like people are like, really? I'm like, if I keep an open mind, we can co-collaborate and we're all better. Like we all have gifts. And so I think that was a great myth. I think a lot of people think I'll have the greater value if I do it all my own on my own. And if I show everyone I got this, I don't need your help. But really what it does is isolate. When I say, hey, Barbara, you got this gift and I got this gift and someone else has this gift, how can we work together to make things great? It shows everyone's value and it shows the ability to work as a team player, which is so important. All right. So as we kind of close out our time together, what I'd like to ask you is, do you have any specific stories about either the present culture, which is brand new, or someplace you've worked that you just like, you know what, Annie, this is what makes made going to work for me great, or this is what I wish everyone had inside their workplace to feel valued, to feel hopeful about their job. I think communication is such a key. When there's changes or layoffs, people get so anxious and then everyone's nervous. But there is changes in workplaces. And so communicating it, but what are some things to make it a healthy, hopeful, and a happy culture in a workplace? If you could just share one story or one thought that other people can take away from this, Barbara, and say, you know what, I am going to bring that to my team, or I'm going to bring that to my office, because everyone is a little on needles the last 2 years. It's been hard. What is something hopeful or encouraging you could offer to them?
Well, I can give you an example of when I owned my own business, and we were part of a bigger organization, but we were really a small business.
Okay.
And one of the things that I most enjoyed was my friend Susan, who was, you could have said she was my competition. We were literally selling the exact same things.
Mm-hmm.
But when she wanted to go on vacation, I covered her office. And when I wanted to go on vacation, she covered my office. And we protected each other's customers. We weren't looking to do anything to hurt each other's business. And in fact, we supported each other's business. And anytime you can find that opportunity, just like you described with the other speakers, where you can make someone feel like they're not alone, they're not isolated, that there is support for them, I think more power to you. That's the type of person you want to be when you're part of a community of people. And And people were always surprised when we would say we would do that for each other, but we weren't surprised. We were friends and we cared about each other and wanted us to be able to have that downtime. And yeah, I always felt like we were setting a good example about how you do business. That's how we looked at it. You know, we cared about, ultimately our job was to care about the people that we served, and it didn't matter if she was there or if I was there. We were going to make sure people are taken care of.
Oh, I wish the whole world knew this. So I thank you so much for sharing it. I remember when I owned my Snap Fitness in New Prague, and the Curves owner, which we went through 4 owners in the time I owned my Snap, I became friends with all of them. And ultimately, when the final woman closed the doors, she told everyone to join Snap. And I didn't do it for that. We were just friends and we wanted people to be healthy. We cared more about our customers than our bottom line. And I think when we are in business with confidence and clarity, and that, not that fear of competition, but rather that collaboration, how can we serve more people better? Your clients feel it, people are more loyal. And you said you're ultimately so loyal, and relationships matter. And I think in the long run, it's a win for everybody. So that is a beautiful story. So Barbara, first, do you have any openings in your town? And second of all, if people want to get a hold of you or just be surrounded by your kindness, your compassion, your curiosity and encouragement, what's the best way to connect with you? Or is there anything you want to tell us about Little Richie? Is it Little Richie? What, Port Richie?
Newport Richie.
Newport Richie. That's going on in the community that you want to, hey, there's a festival coming up this summer, or anything you want to tell us before we sign off here?
You know, we're just going to start the first Saturdays where we have vendors, and we'll shut down the Railroad Square. And so the first Saturday every month. But there's concerts, tribute bands in our Sims Park. There's places to put your kayak into the water and take the river out to the Gulf of Mexico. It's absolutely beautiful. Come at sunrise, come at sunset. You'll get a chance to walk around the lake and just enjoy the area. Lots of great restaurants. I've had excellent food. So yeah, just come in and stop by City Hall. I'd be happy to talk to anyone.
And if you want to connect with Barbara, she is on LinkedIn and she's pretty active. She's a great encourager with her comments and her support of so many people in the good work that she's doing. So thanks so much for being with us at H3 TV, and we will see you next Wednesday. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Annie.